T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th space shuttle.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd planned to speak to you tonight to report on the State of the Union. But the events of earlier today have led me to change those plans. Today is a day for mourning and remembering. 19 years ago, almost to the day, we lost 3 astronauts in a terrible accident on the ground. But we've never lost an astronaut in flight. We've never had a tragedy like this. But they, the Challenger 7, were aware of the dangers and overcame them. We mourn 7 heroes. And they had that special grace, that special spirit that says, give me a challenge and I'll meet it with joy. They had a hunger to explore the universe and discover its truths. They wished to serve, and they did. They served all of us.
The Space Shuttle Challenger was one of NASA's greatest triumphs. It was the second shuttle to reach space, and successfully completed 9 milestone missions. But the Challenger was also NASA's darkest tragedy. Only 73 seconds into its 10th flight, the Space Shuttle Challenger disintegrated. All 7 crew members died in a disaster that changed the space program forever.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
Hot pressurized gas in the rocket motor reached the outside of the ship and collided with the rocket boosters in the external fuel tank. Quickly, the shuttle began to fall to pieces. The external tank failed and the orbiter broke apart as the crew compartment and other vehicle components fell into the ocean below.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded. Flight director confirms that. We are looking at checking with the recovery forces to see what can be done at this point.
Only 2 weeks before the Challenger disaster, America had 2 huge successes in space travel. On January 12th, the Space Shuttle Columbia launched and completed the 24th space flight. Only 4 days before the Challenger launch, an American spacecraft, Voyager 2, made the first flyby of Uranus. This was the first flyby of Uranus in human history. American spirits were high and full of hope for another huge success.
On January 28, 1986, I was standing outside my home in Sebastian, Florida, which is about 42 miles from the launch site at Cape Canaveral. My family and I had watched lots of space flights, including all the space shuttle flights that had happened to this point. One of my brothers kept a huge scrapbook of all the space shuttle flights, all the newspaper clippings and all the pictures he could get from NASA and stuff like that. So he was really into the space stuff, and that kind of spread throughout the family. I remember it was really cold that morning. It was one of the rare times we had frost in the morning that lasted after 8 in the morning on that day. My brother was at school that day, so my grandmother and I went outside with our radio. We were all excited because this was a space shuttle flight with a teacher on it, and she was going to do all kinds of really cool experiments and lessons from space. We saw the shuttle lift off like normal, but when the separation stage happened, instead of the space shuttle continuing up into the sky in a beautiful arc like it usually does, it made an odd Y-shaped cloud in the sky. After about 20 seconds of wondering what had happened, NASA came on the radio and said, obviously, there has been a major malfunction. What I still remember most from that day was the way the Y-shaped cloud hung in the sky for hours because it was so cold and dry.
This tragedy came in the thick of the Cold War. By 1985, America was years ahead of Russia. We had far superior spacecrafts, and NASA was going strong. America wanted this success to continue, to show the American superiority. However, the Challenger was a major setback. The disaster resulted in a 32-month hiatus in NASA's shuttle program. NASA was spurred by the disaster to create better testing mechanisms for shuttles, to prepare them for flight, and to take even more precautions before liftoff. Reagan's response to the Challenger disaster was supportive, but he used the tragedy as a political boost. In his Challenger disaster speech, he spoke to the children of America to create a sense of comfort for the American people. This not only helped the children understand, but gave parents a higher opinion of Reagan. Reagan also used the disaster to show the American ability to rise from the ashes of failure. He promoted the NASA hiatus, but only so future flights would be flawless. He tried to show that the astronauts' dedication, even though it led to their deaths, was not in vain. It was a stepping stone for future exploration. Reagan employed the tragedy as a boost for his political image. Little was found of the ship, but that which was found is buried at the Challenger Memorial in Arlington, Texas. The families of the crew organized the Challenger Center for Space Science Education and created 52 learning centers. The legacy of the Space Shuttle Challenger is one that will never be forgotten. Those who died that day are martyrs of science, inadvertently helping the United States to advance its space program and teaching children about the wonder of space travel.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us by the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control to Major Tom. 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. Now it's time to leave the